And welcome back, everybody. We're here with Carrie Bennett. Welcome to the show, Carrie.
Thanks for having me, Amy. I'm so excited to chat with you.
Well, I had a really hard time narrowing down all the things that I want to get your expertise on. My goodness, I'm just so grateful you're on the show. As the audience knows, I've had Dr. Alexis Cowan on the show. I've talked a lot about water with Isabel Friend and, of course, Zolf Zantanga and MLM Mawand. And, so again, we're all in the same circles. What I think might be the wisest way to use your valuable time is to share with us. And of course, there's overlap, right, with water, magnetism, light, all that. But if you could share in particular, drill down mitochondrial health, so the energy and the water component, because Dr. Alexis went into more like the light, right, and the red light and all that stuff and the full spectrum. So obviously, feel free to mention all of it, but I'd really love to focus on the mitochondrial, the electrons, people understanding that, and the water. So before we jump into that, do you want to say anything about a quick background with your story? Because you, like all of us, are a wounded healer. You found this path through your own searching.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and yes, I'm so excited to talk about mitochondria. It's such a fun topic to introduce people to. And it was not something that I was taught ever to look at in terms of my own healing until I had no choice but to look deeper. And so I come from a very traditional university science background, right? So a really traditional biology, mainstream biology viewpoint of the human body. We're a bunch of chemicals and, those chemicals are the most important thing. And that's all there is to it. And after college, I felt this really weird calling that I did not want to go to graduate school. None of the PhD programs just excited me. None of the, being an MD to me just didn't feel right. And so I told my parents I wanted to go to massage therapy school, never having had a massage. And they were like, okay. And so I did. I put myself through massage therapy school and I viewed the body from a completely different lens, one of energy and one of the flow of energy. And if we can optimize the flow of energy, we can improve health outcomes. And then fast forward, I was doing great. It was fun. It was a really cool way to kind of view both the Eastern and the Western, mindset or viewpoint of the body. And then about 13 years ago, my first child was born. And at that point in time, my body just broke down. And it was beyond just, quote unquote, you're a new mom. It was you're exhausted yet an insomniac. You can't digest anything you put into your mouth without extreme pain. Your joints are just puffy and inflamed all the time. And it was just like, whoa. And so in order to sort this out, I looked to my more traditional allopathic background, and nothing moved the needle. I even looked towards the energy flow and more of the Eastern philosophy, and it just wasn't resonating with me. I couldn't dive deeply enough into that at the time, I think, to make the changes that may have improved my health. And so I committed at that point because I thought I knew the answer, and I committed at that point to a 2-year master's degree in nutrition. And I'm like, this is going to move the needle. And so I tried to nutrition super hard, right? Every nutrition plan I could come up with, all the supplements and the 5R, 4R, gut healing protocols. And I felt mildly better, but I wasn't willing to throw in the towel and be like, you're a mom now. Like, that's it. You're sorry. And so I just had this nagging feeling that I was missing something so foundational. And it turns out, as I was diving deeper and deeper, it's like, what else am I missing? I came across a blog post from Jack Kruse that said the words circadian rhythm. And I'm an eternal nerd. And so those words just spoke to me. And I'm like, I need to now know everything that is humanly possible about circadian rhythm, because this is something I'd never heard of, but it sounds so foundational. So that's where I started my journey. I dove into the light, like I'm certain that Alexis was talking about, and how light impacted my health, how I was getting the wrong lighting at the wrong times. I wasn't getting the right lighting at the right time. And then that led me to understand, well, okay, so this is really a relationship between my body is not getting the correct signals to make adequate energy. And how does that process actually happen? What does that actually mean? And that's what led me to the mitochondria, because, and I've got a very different view on the mitochondria than I did in undergraduate school, where we were taught that mitochondria make ATP and ATP is energy, right? And so that's where I've started to fall in love with the idea that mitochondria are like these intracellular little hubs for us that control and support so much for our health. And as soon as I started applying some strategies involving the light and mitochondrial support, I mean, I'm a thriving version of myself, and I'm just so grateful to be able to share this information with others.
Bam. I love it. I love it so much. Everything you said, I'm right on board with you. It's just these things are so foundational and we just have no idea. I mean, like you, I've been doing this over 3 decades in holistic health, and I just can't tell you how many people, and I just feel so badly for them. That's part of why I do this show, is because they're trying to work out. Many of them don't even like it. They're doing that. They're trying to eat the right diet. They're spending the money on organic, non-GMO foods, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, what am I doing wrong? And the thing is, Carrie, in this day and age, with just the onslaught of chemicals and we're getting just bombarded from above, below, beyond, everywhere we look, that our bodies just aren't designed to handle all of these foreign entities. Then we get the whole EMF thing. So food and exercise are just not enough anymore. So let's talk about, just give us a little, well, first of all, how would you define quantum biology? And then I'd love for you to give us a little mitochondria 101.
Yeah, sure. So quantum biology is, the word quantum, I think, scares people because we hear quantum physics, quantum mechanics. It's like, I can't possibly understand this or understand how this applies to my health. But the word quantum is just trying to distinguish understanding our body's physiology from not from a chemistry perspective, right? Because yes, we have a bunch of chemicals running around in our bodies, but those chemicals are actually made up of electrons, protons, neutrons. They're made up of something smaller. And that smaller scale is the quantum scale. And we now know enough about influencing the body by improving or changing the flow of electrons, changing the flow of protons. That's what we're talking about. It's the scale below chemistry. And that's where you could talk, it really intersects deeply with light, with water, with earthing, with even movement. Like we can start to understand movement from a perspective like that. And it's been a game changer for me in terms of choosing the habits on a daily basis that I think are most impactful.
Excellent. Okay. And Mitochondria 101, for the person who, like you, we were told, okay, it's the powerhouse of the cell. So I'm like, what do we need to know about mitochondria, and really like just the practical application for how it makes energy for us? Because we're all needing more energy, right?
Yes, absolutely. So mitochondria, they're called organelles, right? I mean, someone thought they were cute. And so we got these larger organs because, we know the lungs, the stomach, the pancreas. Well, inside of our cells, someone said, well, let's name all the little things inside of the cell an organelle, right? Super cute. And so one of those organelles is called the mitochondrion. And we don't just have one per cell. We've got thousands per cell, if not hundreds of thousands, up to 1 million. So the egg cells have up to 1 million mitochondria. So obviously, they must be important for us to have so many in each of our cells. And these mitochondria do some very, very key things for us. But one of which, like you alluded to, was they actually they break our food down. So our body breaks our food down into electrons and protons and funnels those to the mitochondria. And the mitochondria know how to transform those into water and ATP. So there you go. And that's where the ATP process comes into play. So we know mitochondria, yes, they do make ATP, but believe it or not, ATP is not our body's energy currency. And the forgotten energy currency of the body is the fact that they make water. And the way they do that, so let me break this down. Let's take a mitochondrion and let's I want you to kind of zoom in. So you're zooming in bigger and bigger to blow up this mitochondrion. So what you would see if you were to look deep inside of a mitochondrion is you would see essentially what's called the electron transport chain. And these, I like to call these almost like assembly line. Like you have this assembly line of these different proteins that live deep inside the mitochondria that are able to take electrons and pass electrons from one step to the next, to the next, to the next. And if you can get the electrons to go flow very fluidly, if you will, through all of the steps, the last step, those electrons combine with hydrogen and oxygen to make water. And then that water is an energy currency for us. But these days, unfortunately, there's things that get in the way of that funneling of electrons or tunneling of electrons. And so anything that causes what's called mitochondrial dysfunction, essentially what's happening at that level of the mitochondria is that those assembly line steps are spreading out too far. And so picture this. I tell people this is one of my favorite analogies. Like, let's say you had four stones to cross a 10-foot river, right? You could probably place those stones pretty closely and then get across that river. Like hop, 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 you're across. But now you have 4 stones, but the river is now 50 feet wide. The likelihood of you being able to jump from step to step to step is very small, right? And so what happens with the electrons, they can only tunnel or jump so far. And when the distance becomes too big, we can talk about what causes the distance to become too big. But when the distance becomes too big, we lose electrons, meaning they can't become water, which is an energy currency. They actually, when we lose an electron, that starts an inflammatory cascade. So that creates things like reactive oxygen species. So nowadays we're being bombarded with, as you so beautifully said, based on chemicals and non-native EMFs, we're being bombarded with things that create this spacing between these assembly line proteins, and we're losing the electrons, that we're not able to fully make that energy. And not only that, but it's a double whammy. We're making excess inflammation as well.
Wow. I love that analogy. That really helps us understand it because, again, we've been taught food is energy. And we even define the calorie as the amount of heat produced, right? And then the whole idea was, calories in, calories out. If you want to lose weight, you take in less than you burn out or whatever that is. I don't even think about it anymore because it's not relevant. But, so help us wrap our brain around, because what I'm hearing you say, water is the energy currency of the body. I mean, bang, that's a complete game changer. People think, I can't live on water. Like, it's like asking someone to go on a water fast, right? Hell no. It's like, it's hard, right? And people get hangry if they don't eat in 2 hours, So explain to us how the body actually makes the energy from the water, because it's the water produced by the mitochondria, and how it's not the water as we think of it, right? It's the 4th phase.
Right. And so mitochondria make water. And when they make water, they do make it in its liquid state. Okay. So they make true water, right? So for those of you watching on a video, right, that's water that can swirl in a glass. But that's not the way it stays. As soon as that water molecule comes into contact with a surface inside of our cells, they're called hydrophilic, or just think of it as like a biological surface, which could be a part of the mitochondria. It could be another organelle, a protein, a chemical, a mineral. Our cells are packed with biological surfaces. And anytime that liquid water comes into contact with a biological surface, it creates a new structure to it, meaning the water no longer behaves like a liquid. The water molecules link together in a very ordered way that gives them the consistency of a gel. And that gel consistency is what Dr. Pollack has coined EZ, or exclusion zone water. And what Dr. Pollack found was that if, unlike water in a glass, which is neutral, right? There's no charge to it. Meaning if I were to do chemistry math, it'd be like this many electrons and this many protons. And if I were to add them all up, they would cancel each other out, right? So electrons equal protons. That's a neutral charge. This water, in this EZ water form that's inside of our cells, that's what's supposed to pack our cells. When you add up the electrons and the protons, there's an excess of electrons. There's a negative charge to that water.
Wow.
Now, think about this then. It's a different way of viewing health of the cell, because it's been called similar things. So you'll hear things like we need a healthy membrane potential for a healthy cell, or we need an alkaline environment for a healthy cell. All those are ways of saying negative charge. And for forever, the general mainstream research invoked the need to pump minerals that hold that charge. We got to pump the potassium in, we got to pump the sodium out to keep this charge balance, never taking into consideration that the water may play a vital role in that. And what Jerry Pollack has done is completely rewrote that concept, because we now know that the water itself can be responsible for the healthy negative charge of the cell. And so if the cell requires this beautiful negative charge for health and vitality, that means that if we start to drain the body of that easy water, drain the cell of that easy water, the cell can no longer run all of its tasks because it's literally pulling electricity, electrons from that water as a means of running all the biochemical pathways, all the proteins that are functioning inside of the cell. And so that water is vital. And so that's where me as a clinician, just in my own healing journey, but then as a clinician, I started to think, well, I got to know everything that causes this water to build and be maintained. And I got to figure out all the stuff that's depleting the body of this water. And when I made that connection to the fact that, I was taught in undergraduate and even graduate school that mitochondria make water as a quote unquote byproduct, that's not the case at all. That water is the product, or at least one of the key products that are responsible for maintaining this energetic charge and vitality of the cell.
Okay, so is it the same thing as ions then? Because ions are negatively charged.
They can be. So when we hear the word ions, so yes, we have minerals that can be in their ionic state in the body. And so minerals in their ionic state can have a negative charge, and all minerals in the body, regardless of their charge, build exclusion zone water around them. So I actually view minerals almost as like little raft boats that are carrying exclusion zone water into the cell. But when we hear negative ions, we typically think of the air ions, and those air ions, we actually can absorb those through the skin. It's so interesting because I'm also studying like Qigong and stuff, and like there's practices of like breathing through the skin, not just through the nose. It's like pulling energy through the skin because they knew something, right? They knew, and now modern science is showing, oh wow, it's something like per one negative ion that we bathe our bodies with, we structure up to 1 million water molecules into that gelled state. And so forest bathing, being by a waterfall, being by the ocean air, all negatively charged environments that are designed, I believe, to help us maintain that healthy negatively charged water inside of our bodies.
Okay, and you just hit on, so is it correct to say then it's creating the ions, which is synonymous with a negatively charged electron?
It can be. Ions can be positively or negatively charged. The air ions that we're talking about, the ones that are beneficial, that have the beneficial health effects, those are negatively charged.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah. And you said something very important. And let's go into the EMFs then, because this is something that, deregulates. And the fact that we're telling people to ground, get your feet in contact with the earth. And the reason why you feel better when you go to the ocean or you take a nice shower is because of those negative ions, right? Can you talk more about that and what's screwing that up, like the EMFs?
Yeah. I mean, well, one of the reasons why I think that nutrition doesn't move the needle for people like it used to. I mean, so I've been in this space too for several decades, and I've seen people who would do an elimination diet, and it would completely, cure their rheumatoid arthritis. But this was like maybe 15 years ago, 20 years ago, and what we're dealing with now is so many non-native EMFs that are just really drastically changing our body's ability to make that water and maintain that water. So those EMFs, they will create what's called mitochondrial dysfunction, meaning the mitochondria cannot make the water efficiently. But in the same way, if they're not making the water efficiently, those EMFs also make reactive oxygen and reactive nitrogen species, so damaging molecules, inflammatory molecules. So essentially, you're increasing the inflammation and you're impairing the mitochondria. That's, again, another double whammy in there. And then Gerald Pollack also has some preliminary lab research to indicate that exclusions, even just like you take that exclusion zone water, that beautifully negatively charged gelled water, and if you are exposed to wireless radiation, you inhibit the ability of that exclusion zone water to form to its fullest extent. So how many of us are bathing ourselves in these without realizing it? So we've got wireless keyboards, wireless mouse, our cell phones on our body. I've got my Apple Watch, my data tracker for my sleep. We're bathing, not understanding that if that water is our energy currency, we are depleting it drastically by all of those non-native EMFs, and we're not repleting it because the main energy sources that replete it are getting sunlight on the skin or infrared light on the skin and earthing and grounding. And if we can, how many of us are outside bare feet, full body sun exposure these days? We're just not. That's not something that's taught. We're taught to fear that. We fear the sun because of cancer. We fear the earthing because of parasites or something. I mean, there's all, and so now we're left so depleted and just not able to restore ourselves. Food won't restore us to that extent when we're divorced from all these things, plus surrounded by these frequencies that are so depleting.
All right. So for the basic person to understand this, what we're saying is wearing that Apple Watch, too much time on your screen, having your phone plastered to your head all the time. This is actually what is screwing up your energy because it's screwing up the way the water is able to be used, the way it's produced in your body, which is basically what gives you the energy.
Yeah. So if you view the water as if you have enough of that negatively charged water, that's a full battery of energy that your cell can draw from. Yeah. And the wireless radiation drains it. So it's like never plugging your cell phone in. And it reaches a critical threshold. And that cell phone's at this point where it's like, no, I'm not going to live stream that. Or I'm not going to download that. Or no, it's like, I'm not going to run the flash with that photograph because it's conserving energy. So picture a cell that's in energy conservation mode and only running just the essential tasks to basically stay alive, but not to thrive. And so that's exactly it. It's draining us, and we're not doing the things to restore it.
And what people don't really understand about the way EMFs work is it's a microwave signal, which creates heat. And that's more dehydrating. So the more you're exposed to all these currents, the more you're dehydrated. And that even, goes to this argument about global warming and everything. It's like everybody's looking at cows and like gardening and stuff. It's like, hello, what about the 5G and everything that we're radiating all over the planet, creating basically a big microwave oven? Don't you think that's how the microwave oven works? It heats up the food.
Yeah. Shake stuff around until it vibrates the water molecules. Essentially. Yeah. To heat it up. No, that's exactly right. And so if this is something that someone hasn't addressed, here's the hard one, right? Because no one wants to think that their screen, which we're all addicted to, or our Apple Watch or our AirPods, we don't want to think that that's harming us, because that's a hard one to be like, uh-oh. But it's a really important one to become aware of. And it's not about living in a cave, right? You don't have to go live in a cave. But there's a reason I'm hardwired in my workspace, because I spend hours a day here. And I know when I take in my EMF meter, and I did it when it was wireless, and now that it's wired, there are no EMFs here. This is an EMF-free zone. So I feel very good spending time here. The other thing that you alluded to about the wireless are the microwave radiation, that microwave frequency. The body, actually, our cells can communicate using their own little endogenous, not the non-native, but natively produced microwave frequency signals. So not only are we basically vibrating our water molecules and depleting our energy, but picture a lot of noise or static in the communication system of the body. If our cells are trying to speak clearly through this language, but yet now we're being bombarded with the language, but it's just in a bunch of static and it's chaotic, you're also impairing the body's ability to communicate. And that's how we coordinate this beautifully complex body. It's not about it's not like the cells in my fingertip don't know what's happening in the cells in my ear, right? The whole body knows what's going on. And it's through these frequencies of communication. And if those are blocked, it's very hard to get the body back into alignment.
Okay. And what about quantum connective tissue? I know that some of your work is involved in that. Explain to us how that fits into the whole water equation.
Yeah, sure. So this was because of my massage background, where I started to realize that, again, this is another one, in undergraduate school, we talked a ton about the cardiovascular system, the immune system, the nervous system, the stomach, the main supposedly organ systems of the body. And when I was in my undergraduate anatomy class, I distinctly remember the professor being like, "Oh yeah, you see that fuzz or that's that little membrane around the organ? Just cut it off and remove it. It's not important." But in massage therapy school, that connective tissue network, that fascial network, is everything. that's where the meridian system runs through. And so we need to have a hydrated and intact connective tissue network. And when we do, we have energy flow, certainly through the meridian system, but just also through the fact that when the collagen is able to be hydrated and stacked and twisted correctly, it forms what are called water nanotubes. So it's like literally little channels made solely of water where we can funnel light and electrons, protons faster than the speed of light, right? So it is a body-wide, like almost like a fiber optic cable network. Yeah. And again, if we're not hydrated or if there are things that destroy the collagen, and unfortunately glyphosate is one of those things that can really destroy our collagen, we're in a body that has roadblocks in terms of being able to funnel the energy and the information where it needs to go. And so that's why, again, I even through my lens of acupressure and trying to relieve those blockages, it wasn't enough for me, because I think what we're dealing with is just a modern day onslaught of dehydration and destruction. The non-native EMFs, the glyphosate, those are two big things that are impairing this body-wide communication system.
All right, and tell people where is glyphosate coming from, so they understand. Like, some people might not even know what that is.
Yeah, so that's Roundup, right? That's Roundup, and it can be coming from pesticides, right? So that could be coming from literally the fact that I still see people spraying their dandelions and their weeds in their.
I was just in Home Depot yesterday, and there was a big thing. It literally said Roundup, and I'm like, they're still selling this? People are buying this? It's like, oh my gosh.
I know. I know. I like lots of people in my neighborhood still do it too. And I'm just like, I want this to become an awareness for people.
Yes, exactly.
So that could be where it's coming from, because people are spraying and because it's a pesticide that's put on conventional produce, right? So it's designed to essentially enhance the yield of the produce, but it's going to stay in the fruits and vegetables themselves, so you can consume it when you're consuming conventionally raised fruits and vegetables. But there's also going to get into the groundwater, and so it's going to be in the tap water, the soil, right? And so we're getting it from that as well. It's pervasive, right? So it's hard to avoid, but there's things we can do just by making smarter decisions about, trying to find our local regenerative farmers. It's as simple as going to a farmer's market and having a conversation with your local farmer to say, hey, talk to me about your growing practices. And regenerative farmers, they love talking about their growing practices. So you'll really connect to people who understand. And then believe it or not, it's a lot cheaper to buy those local seasonal vegetables anyways that are organically raised. And so, filtering your water, right? I'm certain Isabel did a great job talking about taking tap water and transforming it into its, necessary vital state. But that's part of it, was that tap water is dead because it's got the chemicals in it. And so, just the awareness
plays that. It's been destructured.
It's been completely destructured.
Like the work of Zangtanga and MLM. Like, people don't understand. It's not enough to just even filter anymore. It's like the water, if you visualize that, snowflake crystal, it has a specific structure it's supposed to be in order to function and deliver information and instructions to your cell. And if it's been denatured and it's incoherent, that water can't do what it's supposed to do. So yes, filter it. But in this day and age, you can complain all you want, but it's just the way it is. You got to take that extra step, ensure that it's properly structured as well.
100%.
Yeah, so I'm really grateful for his amazing work. Wow, that was a game changer when I found that MLM wand. And everybody, that's in the show notes too, if you want to look into what we're talking about. I just want to add two more things for the audience in the Roundup glyphosate thing. Don't forget too that it's not just the plants. You are what you ate. So any kind of animal foods that ate the conventional plants, that's all the food chain, right? The cycle of life. So that's another reason why to put in the time, the money, the effort to get the organic, non-GMO, properly raised animals. And I'll say too that we gotta. I've become a gardener, okay? So, I've always I'm a nature girl, right? I wanted to be a vet when I was a kid and all that stuff. But I'm really doing the gardening myself. At least I'm learning. I'm trying to. And one thing I've learned, because we're now recording this in the spring, and you can plant seeds or you can plant starters. Do you know anything about gardening? Do you garden?
Yeah, I garden. Yeah, I use Electroculture in my garden.
Yes, I love it. Okay, I want to talk about that. I put in some of those too. I put one in the chicken coop. They love it. And it really works. I actually did a test of 2 plants, one with it and one without, and the one with it, yep, much better.
Thriving.
But the point I just wanted to share with everybody that I learned is because I was trying to find seeds and starters that were organic, non-GMO. And my point for the audience is sometimes you can just look for non-spray. So when you go to your local farmer or food market, if you ask them, are you organic? And it's like, we all know, first of all, organic has been completely bastardized, and it's not even right. It's not even what we think it is anymore, unfortunately. Plus, they have to make them go through so many damn hoops. It's super expensive. Right. The small farmer can't even. So to land this plane, my point is maybe if you just ask what their spraying methods are. And what do you think, Carrie? Is it enough for the farmer to answer, we do no spray?
It's certainly better, right?
Okay.
Here's my thing, okay?
Yeah.
Because I see people who, in my clinical practice, who have decades-long debilitation, right? And what oftentimes happens when people have been feeling so bad for so long, the perfectionist mindset can be someone's biggest enemy. And so maybe no spray is not the absolute perfect produce, right? Maybe it doesn't have enough the same life force vitality from a bricks measurement standpoint as a different someone who maybe grows it with electroculture or something, right? But is it certainly better? Number one, is it certainly better than fast food? Heck yeah. Number two, is it certainly better than something that was grown in California and shipped across the country that was conventional? Absolutely, right? And so it's like baby steps, because I see people get this paralysis by analysis and their nervous system just gets so fried that they don't feel safe in any of their decisions, overwhelmed. So do the best you can with the resources that you have and know that that's great. And if at some point there's another resource that appears and you can shift and change, perfect. But people get stuck in that perfectionist mindset, and can be debilitating in terms of allowing their body to feel safe enough to heal.
I'll tell you, one of my favorite sayings is that progress is the goal, not perfection. So all right. So then when we go to the local farm stand, just to finish this thought, if they say no spray, that's what you're saying. It's better than nothing. It's pick your battles. But if they're not going to do organic, because that's, what are we looking for ultimately for the answer to be? Like what has been done to the produce?
I ask, the questions that I'll ask is, I'll just basically say, what are your growing practices like? And oftentimes they'll say the words regenerative or permaculture, electroculture, right? They'll talk about how they'll be very adamant about how we do not do anything to spray our produce. We do things to restore the soil microbiome, the soil minerals. And these local farmers that I've interacted with, they're very passionate about this because they recognize how conventional farming is destroying the land. And so I don't live in a big town, and it doesn't take long. It's not hard to find at least a handful of those farmers at the farmers markets who are really doing well in terms of not spraying, but then taking it the step further. They're actually helping to restore the soil so that the plant that you consume, or the animal for that matter that you consume, is more nutrient dense than it would have been prior.
And they're looking long-term, and being a steward of the planet and the land. And
exactly.
I love that. That's very helpful. And you actually said it, because I am thinking of my local farm hub, and the way they answer the question, it just, you can just feel the resonance of it. Like, okay, yes, it's not organic, but they care. Like they're, you know what I mean? People communicate their integrity to you sometimes by how and what they say, not necessarily, the details,
or not necessarily the label. Like I could care less if they have a certified, frankly, certified organic to me is like, oh, you might not take the same care. And so I'm perfectly fine. It's just having that conversation and understand. And then you connect to the seasonal growing practices, which is another thing we've divorced ourselves from. But that's a signal. You can go back to probably listen to Alexis's, but that's a signal of time of year. And time of year pairs with the amount of sunlight you have at a certain time of the year pairs with the amount of carbs that your body anticipates. It's like, it all goes together. And so it's just a fun way to kind of it's a different way that we're not taught anymore, that probably, people 100 years ago would have just been like banging their heads on the wall listening to this podcast by saying this is so obvious, but it's just, we become divorced from it.
And now it's so not obvious. Like we're completely woo to some people, right? Like, what is she talking about? That food is less important than light, and why don't you just touch on the importance of the seasonality and how basically the mitochondria is looking for the signal, looking for the information from the light, from the food, what to do. And I love Jack Kruz's expression that food is basically a barcode for instructions for your cells. So why don't you touch on that a little bit? Actually, with Alexis, we didn't talk too much about seasonality.
Okay, sure. So, as we said before, the mitochondria, one place, not the only place, but one place the mitochondria can get those electrons from for the electron transport chain is through food. And there's actually two inputs. There's step one, electrons can enter at step one and then go hop to the fourth step to make water, or electrons could enter at step two and hop to the fourth step to make water. Now, where they enter is dependent on a couple of things. Whether they came from carbs or fat, because you can get electrons from fat or you can get electrons from the carbs. The protein really stays as an amino acid to be a building block of our tissues. But the carbs and the fat that we eat will get broken down into those electrons. Now, mitochondria are understanding based on our own circadian rhythm, which would be the time of day. So it's like how much daylight versus darkness. So if we are in a period where we've got a lot more daylight than darkness, mitochondria actually are anticipating that we're going to get more carbohydrates or input of electrons into that first step as opposed to the second step. Whereas in the middle of winter, at least where I live in Michigan, there's not seasonal produce available in the winter. So my mitochondria are going to anticipate more input at step two, right? They're going to expect animal fats and things like that to get input into that part of the electron transport chain. So if all of a sudden it's the middle of winter and my mitochondria are sensing it's winter because of the greater darkness and even the cold temperatures, that's another thing the mitochondria can sense. Yet I'm all of a sudden decided to go on a fruit smoothie diet, in January because that's my New Year's resolution, right? My fruit smoothie diet.
Nightmare.
Right? My mitochondria are just kind of like, what the heck is going on? And they're not ready to have that aggressive input. My electrons won't tunnel as well. And so you're going to get a lot more inflammation because of those carbohydrate inputs in the winter. And so that's what, and also I truly believe that it can be a stressor for people to be in the height of the harvest season, meaning the time of year is such that we know that there's abundant carbohydrates available, yet we restrict ourselves of them. I found that to be a stressor for some people as well. So when we get back in touch with what's available seasonally and locally, the mitochondria and our circadian signal is strong, right? We're getting the light signaling and the correct dark signaling. Our mitochondria know what they can expect. They'll say, okay, summer, ready for carbs, or they'll say winter, let's get those electrons from fat, and they'll optimize their tunneling to make that water for us and reduce the amount of inflammation, the lost electrons that happen. And so it's a beautifully paired system. We're so tightly connected to our environment, but these days we're just so divorced. Or like I could ship something, I could eat something from Peru. I could literally, drive 10 minutes to eat something from Peru, and it's just that's not coupled to my local environment. And so if we could start to reconnect with the local farmers markets, especially with the seasonal growing practices and regenerative seasonal growing practices, it's a beautiful thing for the ability of our mitochondria to take those electrons and ultimately make that water for us.
So well said, and so important. Jack Kruz has talked about eating a banana in Boston in January, and how and people wonder why they can't lose weight and their joints hurt. So, okay, then Carrie, when the summer, the sun is obviously stronger and hotter, and we're getting more light. There is more daylight, and hopefully we're getting more light. And we find that we're not as hungry. And is it because we're getting the electrons directly from the sun, so we need less from the food?
That's part of it. So remember, if the name of the game is maintain this water battery, and so that water battery, as I said before, the main thing, I didn't emphasize it up, but the main two things that charge that water battery, literally just expand that water battery back to its healthy negative charge, are infrared light and grounding. And so picture the fact that we're outside, like we're designed to be outside and in that infrared, and that infrared energy is not just the direct light exposure. That's there in the shade. We're absorbing it in the shade as well. And so, if we're fully charged and the cell has all the energy it needs to run all of its tasks, it would be stupid to signal, oh, Carrie, go hunt, gather, find a meal. It'd be stupid to waste energy when my energy is already replete. And so then you get a down-regulating signal to the appetite to basically say, nope, you don't need to, you're not hungry because your water energy is charged fully. Right? And in the winter, there's ways that we can do that as well. We were designed to be around campfire because winter is a period of scarcity too, and so we're just not taught that this is an energy source. And so if we could optimize the infrared exposures by light and sunlight and warmth in the summer, and then maybe have campfire or fire, or let's say a sauna. That's why the Scandinavian countries have such a rich history of sauna use or sauna use. Like if we can optimize it, it's a game changer for people because their energy starts to actually regulate itself naturally, and their appetite regulates itself naturally as well. So it's fun. And your cravings. I love this because when people do this kind of engage with the light, there's not a chance that I want a fruit smoothie in the middle of winter. But come springtime, like right about now, I'm like, give me some greens, give me some asparagus, give me some like
blueberries.
I want, right. Exactly. Like the cravings start to tie with what your body anticipates is available in your local environment.
That's so cool. And, as they say, red light is the antidote to blue light. And, to circle back to the beginning of our conversation, that blue light from the screens, the computers, the cell phones, the radiation, the smart TV, all this stuff, that's why, unfortunately, most of us, I think I heard the other day, like 90% of people live indoors. Like 90% of the day, like something nuts. Like we're inside way too much.
I'll trump that actually.
More?
It's 93% of the time indoors, but they took into consideration being in a car behind closed windows as being outside.
Oh no. Oh my God. In a car is now outside. Oh, you're out. Oh, so it should say in the house then. I mean, but seriously, this is how statistics is just another example. It doesn't matter what we're talking about, how it's manipulated, and you're being told is not what you think you're being told. It's like, anyway.
Oh, I go back to that blue light really quickly because there's a really powerful intersection with the mitochondria. And this is the work that's done by Glenn Jeffrey. He's now a red light therapy researcher over in the UK. And what he found was that blue light that comes from screens that doesn't have, so screens and bulbs have that blue light that doesn't have any of the red or the infrared, right? That blue light that is unopposed by the red and the infrared inhibits mitochondrial water production. So another thing, right? That's the light that we're bathing ourselves in indoors all the time. And it literally is inhibiting the mitochondria from making water. What he found that I think I really want this to be inspiring for people is that if you pre-treat someone, so let's say someone who has to work in a hospital setting all day, which we know those are garbage lighting environments. If you actually pre-treat their bodies with red and near infrared light, which you can get from a good quality red light therapy panel or from sunlight, if you pre-treat them with it, the mitochondria can stay in a better functioning than if you didn't pre-treat them, even though they're in this toxic blue light environment all day. So again, there's things that we're trying to figure out because, not everyone's on board with changing all the light bulbs at this point in time. Yeah. So what can you do right now if you're working in that environment to support your body? And it's get your body in the sun or get your body in front of a red light therapy panel.
And wear your blue blockers.
100%.
Yeah, and make sure your water is structured. And there's a lot you can do if you're stuck in that environment. That's the good news. I like that, Carrie. I like always bringing the good news. So before we let you go, let's circle back on the eco-culture, because you got to tell us, electroculture rather. You got to tell us the scoop on that. A lot of people don't even know what that is. So just tell us, please, what it is.
Can I grab one of my antenna right here?
Yeah, go for it.
My buddy, I've had this buddy behind me for 20 years now. My plant friend. I don't know if anyone can see it, but I have a plant.
Oh yeah, but he's right behind me. All right, guys, if you're watching, it's on YouTube, Awakening Aphrodite podcast, Fit Amy TV, and if you're listening, well, go check out YouTube when you can. Okay, go ahead.
And I'll just try to describe this for those who are just listening. Yeah. But what electroculture is it's harnessing energy from the ether, which is just or the atmosphere, you could say, right? So the soils used to be more full of what are called paramagnetic minerals, or minerals that hold a certain charge or attraction. They're magnetic in a way. And so soils are the most fertile soils are fertile because they've got this magnetism to them, and they can essentially attract charge and energy from the atmosphere and put that into the soil, and the plants will take that extra charge and grow bigger yield, taller, just more robust. And it acts as a natural pesticide, because one of the only reasons why insects or slugs or whatnot are attracted to plants isn't because they're like, oh, I want that fruit, I really like that fruit. No, dying and decaying plants emit infrared energy. And that big infrared emission is what draws the insects. The insects can see the infrared that we can't, right? And so they're drawn to that. And so if you can maintain a healthy, energetic charge of the soil and the plant can draw it, that plant is not emitting infrared anymore. So it's essentially invisible to the pests. And so electroculture is a means of not only pulling energy from the atmosphere, from the ether essentially, and putting it into the soil for the plant to extract and use for its own growth. It's also allowing that plant to stay in that vital light emission pattern. So again, it's not going to attract the pests like a dying plant will, which is why when you got depleted soil, the plant can't pull in that energy. So you have to spray a bunch of pesticides on it. And I mean, there's a reason why we have to use pesticides as opposed to electroculture. And electroculture, what you do is I just take a pretty light gauge copper wire and I wrap it around a stick I find in the backyard. So just get a stick from your backyard, wrap it around it, just basically spiral it around, and boom, stick it in your plants, stick it next to your pots, stick it next to your plants outside. People on Etsy sell these things too, but it can be DIY cheap and still be highly effective.
You wrapped yours really tight. Does it matter how tight, Carrie? Because mine are like loosey-goosey. I mean, you could put your whole finger between the stick and the copper. Is that okay?
It's still wrapped. Yeah, it's still wrapped. What matters most is the coil, because it's the spiral. The spiral is what attracts that energy to the soil.
Okay.
So,
Phew. Okay. Now, this is a very important question. How about the direction of the coil, as in counterclockwise or clockwise? Because I've heard different things about that.
I've always done mine. Well, I played around with both. Okay. I've played around with both. And I have a feeling, I'm always of the opinion, and who the heck knows what the shape of the planet is anymore, but I don't want to go, there's so many things I question. There's
Everything we've been told is
things I got to look into, still deep dives I have to do. But so I have a feeling that if there are different results, maybe it's based on whether someone is below the equator or above the equator. Yeah. So, but what I have found is if I do it in a clockwise fashion, it has a better effect on maintaining plant vitality and plant growth.
Okay. And this is just so, first of all, I had no idea about the whole making the plant invisible to insects thing. I didn't even know that was doing that. So, wow, bonus. But I thought, and tell me, what about the magnetic energy from the earth? I actually got it backwards. I thought the copper was pulling the magnetic forces from the ground up into the plant. What you're saying is it's more like an antenna attracting the energy down.
Is it
pulling anything up, or?
Well, I'm certain there's some component to that, but you need there's a specific type of magnetism in certain minerals, right, that are depleted from the soil. They're called paramagnetic. We don't have time to go into paramagnetism right now. People will just fall asleep. Yeah. But yeah. So I have a feeling what's happening is that would happen if we had paramagnetic minerals in our soil, and we just don't. We don't these days. And so that's probably why we're not, maybe naturally we would have been extracting Earth's magnetism in a different way or attracting Earth's magnetism in a different way. That's just not happening. And so it really does now act as that antenna to draw it down and into the Earth.
And then what's the square footage? Like how many of the electroculture sticks should how what's the range they cover?
Oh, there's so many details on this that a lot of it depends, right, Amy? Because it depends on if you have paramagnetic soil, right, versus not. To keep it simple for people, I tell people one stick of comparable size per plant that you want to support. Just stick.
Oh, wow.
And
one in my garden. I guess I need more.
well, yeah. So what you could actually do is you could maybe put it one at one end and one at the other, and then there can be sometimes there's like a cross line of the energy where you can support a bunch. So, wow, yeah.
I mean, I know we got to wrap. Okay, so 2 more questions. Top 3 basic health habits for mitochondrial health, water health, just kind of to bring a closure to everything we've been talking about. What would be just someone who's just like, okay, I'm the person going to the gym and trying to eat right. This is all news to me. Give us your just top maybe 3 or 5 things to start today.
Sure. So mind your light environment. If it's dark outside, whether it's first thing in the morning or in the evening, you shouldn't be staring at a screen without blue blockers. So you need the orange tone blue blockers or red, right? The clear ones or even the yellow ones that I have on right now don't do the trick, right? We need the dark
yellow
ones. Yeah, yellow are good for daytime. Then go outside in the morning as much as you can. Morning light signals information that kickstarts so many pathways in the body. So get that morning light signaling. And that's where you are essentially have a set circadian rhythm. Get infrared light on your skin, whether it's from sunlight, whether it's a sauna, whether it's a hot bath, whether you're cuddling and sharing infrared. Infrared energy is vital to maintaining that water battery inside of us. And then lastly, above all else, fear is the worst thing that we could possibly do for our health. So if you're starting to implement things out of a fear-based strategy, you have to completely reframe something in your life because fear will impair the mitochondria even more than bad light.
Wow.
So I never want to drive fear in my clients. I never want to motivate out of fear because that will prevent you from reaching true health.
The number one detriment to mitochondrial health is fear.
Fear.
How about that?
Well, what are we around? What are
Bathing in it.
Yeah, exactly. So
Unbelievable. It's like how do you nourish your brain? How do you nourish your mind? We got to pay attention to everything coming into us, not just our food and our water, but what's coming into your ears.
Yeah. Or as Dolph was probably saying, and probably Isabel too, that water, yes, it's energy, but it's an antenna. It's listening, right? So choose wisely what you interact with throughout the day, the media you consume, the conversations, if that gossiping person, maybe you don't want to be around them, right? Maybe you choose differently because of it.
So great. Such great stuff. Any final thoughts, Carrie? Thank you for your time today.
Yeah, I'm just so grateful for this conversation. And I hope something of this resonates with people and it helps them on their healing journey. So thank you, Amy, for having me.
Amazing. And other than checking out your amazing website, and you've got some free guides for people for more information, circadian rhythms and light and all that stuff, can you direct us anywhere, some top resources that you use? Like maybe for Electroculture or
understanding.
Oh, that's the Electroculture book. Go. His Instagram name is NU Atlantis. His name is Kenneth Sperry. He just put out a brand new book on Electroculture. Blew my mind. I've read extensively on Electroculture, and his just takes the cake. So go check out Kenneth's book.
Oh, that was in your newsletter.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I get your newsletter. Okay, that's I'm gonna have to get. All right, how can we find you, Carrie Bennett?
CarrieBWellness.com is my website. There's courses there. All my courses for individuals looking to heal are $25. All my courses for practitioners, if you want to learn this stuff, are $35. So check those out and head on over to Instagram because I share a lot of stuff at Carrie B Wellness on Instagram as well.
So great. Thank you so much. Everybody, if you enjoyed the show, you know what to do. Please leave a review, share it with someone that needs to hear it, who basically is everybody. And thanks for being here on Awakening Aphrodite. We'll see you next time, everyone. Thanks, Carrie.
Thank you.